The key to enjoying people, the first point is be grateful for the good in people. Starting in Philippians 1 verse 3, every time I think of you, I give thanks to my God. And when we think of people, we have a choice. We can thank God for him or her, or think about the problems, the issues, the mean things, the letdowns, etc. You know, I have a question for all of us here in this room. What happens to me and you when we think negatively about him and her? There's different things that happen within each of us. Some of us get anxious, some of us get angry, jealous, upset, sadness, and this is something that happens internally to all of us. It's nothing to do with them. They're not even in the room, and yet we feel all these emotions. And yet we have these prisons that we put ourselves in. And we're trying to figure out how do we break out of these things so that we can truly relate to the good in the people that we want to be with. These are the relationships that matter most to us. We see people all the time in our neighborhoods, in our place of work, here at the church. And we always want to be able to love people with the compassion and the care that Jesus demonstrated. And yet when we carry these things with us, it's impossible to do so. You cannot be resentful and angry at somebody and at the same time loving and caring. There's something that we have to do to change this. So what do? What happens when me and you thank God for others? The first thing is none of that happens that we just talked about. The anger and the resentment cannot be there when we're grateful for the people in our lives. But when we thank God for people, we're filled with his peace, we're filled with gentleness, we're filled with joy, and we gain the right perspective on what really matters most. When we talk about what matters most, it always comes down to relationships in the people that are in our lives. This is so critical to get this morning. So as a result of this kind of thinking, we make these people bad. And when we make someone bad, that's all we focus on. That's the only thing that we see. It's the part of them that, you know what, no matter what good they're doing, what we point out and what we remember is the bad things that they do. And that just puts ourselves in a position that cannot win. But the good news is today, we can start this new year and this new day to change this pattern that maybe we've been stuck in for maybe even years. But we can reap new benefits starting today. So how often does the Bible say for us to do this? Going back to that verse in Philippians 1, it says, every time I think of you. Not sometimes, but every single time that we do it. I must do this on a regular basis, or I'll let my focus go to that bad or the negative that they are doing. And I'll start missing out on all the good that they are and what they're accomplishing in their lives. And this is what happens. Once we let ourselves make someone be bad, then they can't do anything right. We'll only see the bad in their lives. See, God knows our tendencies. He knows that we're going to basically dwell on that which is the negative and the bad part of it. So he says, every time you have a chance, think about me and bring that into the situation. And I have this picture of my daughter that I see pretty much every day. And it's when she was a 3-year-old. And when I look at this picture, it always reminds me of her innocence and her purity. And I think of God's creation. And I think, you know what? She's 12 years old now. And, you know, we go through our hard times and things like that. But I always remember this picture, this 3-year-old daughter of mine. And I remember what God put in her. And I always want to remember this. So I keep that picture in a place that I can see it every single day as a reminder of the goodness in her. Because you know what? When we struggle with the people around us, the people that matter most to us, it's so difficult to remember the purity, to remember the innocence, to remember that this person is a child of God. And yet that's exactly what this verse in Philippians is calling us to do. We must remember to think on the good things in each person. So how we view our kids can make a big difference. And all of us would want to see the good in the different relationships that we have, whether it's our kids, our spouses, the people at work. It's something that if I asked you the question, of course we would want. And yet we find ourselves dwelling on these other emotions that we find in ourselves when the person's not even in our company. How we think has the power to bring about the good or the bad. You ever notice people live up to or down to how they're perceived or treated? When you want to pull out the good in another person, if you're focused on the bad, you're never going to bring out the best in them. Because they'll feel it, even if you're not stating it. But when you see something good in another person, then they will rise up to that. And they'll make the changes and your relationships will be better. It's so easy to see the bad. Let me give you an illustration. With my kids at home, I never noticed how many times my kids leave the bathroom sink toothpaste free. But I notice every single time when I wake up in the morning, I go into the bathroom, I notice it if there's toothpaste on the sink. So let's say it's 7 days. 5 out of the 7 days, they do it well. I walk in the bathroom, the counter's clean. They never once hear from their father, good job, you did a great job, I'm so proud of you, you took responsibility today and you cleaned up the counter. They never hear that. But the 2 days, the 2 out of the 7, that's what I focus on. So when I see toothpaste on the counter, what do? I go into their room and I call them out and I get all upset with them and I'm talking about the thing that was wrong. And that's what they hold on to. So they never hear me talking about the good, affirming them, showing them how much I love them. No, they hold on to Dad's resentful, Dad's bitter, he's always upset, he's always correcting. Is that how I want my kids to remember me? No. That's not how you want your kids to remember you either. So it's so important every time we think of the people in our lives that we start practicing looking for the good. So lesson number 1 is this. Remember the best and forget the rest. If we could put that into practice, our relationships would be so much healthier. And there's this wonderful quote by Anne Frank. It says this, everyone has inside of him a piece of good news. The good news is that you don't know how great you can be, how much you can love, what you can accomplish, and what your potential is. That's good news, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it's all about. This is when you talk to a person, you can inspire them to greater heights than they could ever achieve alone. And you get to look at them and encourage them and point out the good in them so that they can realize their full potential that they have in Jesus Christ. And this is your opportunity every day when you're with the people around you. You get to choose what you're going to focus on. You can look at the bad in people and be filled with resentment and bitterness, or you can look at the good in people, be filled with joy and peace and an ability to speak truth into that person's life. Because you never know who you're impacting. Your words can make a difference. You can influence the people around you. If you'll just take the time to thank God for them and to think about that which He thinks about, how He sees them, and what He wants to draw out of them. Each and every one of us in this room have the potential to bring out the goodness in another person. Will we accept that challenge? Will we accept that opportunity to do that? Because if you do, your relationships will be that much better. The second part of that verse says, every time I think of you, I give thanks to my God. Giving thanks to my God. Can you imagine what will happen when we put this verse into action? For me to give thanks to God for another person, especially someone who I haven't been getting along well, is extremely difficult. But I think God is trying to do a work on the inside of you and me. He's trying to do something inside of us. He knows that if we will go through the process of getting before Him, making ourselves think of the things we can thank God about in the other person, this will cause us to be more loving. Too many times we put the attention and the focus on them as if they're doing something wrong. And yet God is saying, you know what? If you want to make your relationships great, focus on myself. Focus on how I view them, my perspective, what I can control and what I can change. When you do this, you can be thankful before God. By focusing on remembering the best and thanking God for these things will cause our minds to forget the rest because it will not be as important anymore. Whatever becomes your focus will win the day. And lastly, giving thanks to God forces us to think about that which is good in others. God is trying to keep our focus on the good in others and to see people the way that He sees them. How we see them will end up being how we treat them. This is all about our perspective. And God is saying, you know what? You can control how you choose to view people. It is your perspective that makes all the difference with healthy relationships. So that's point number 1.